Chapter 264, Throw Him Out. Chapter 264, Throw Him Out. Spar with me? An interested smile showed on Jian Wushuang's face. Jian explained, take it easy, I just want to have a competition with you in martial arts, nothing to do with cultivation of spiritual power. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Sparing when one ventured outside was normal. Besides, the white-robed woman, Jian, standing in front of him was humble. It was hard to refuse her. Okay please, a cyan long sword showed in her hands. Sir, be careful. After she had said that, wow. In a second her figure turned into a sharp sword, breaking through the void and hurtling at Jian Wushuang. The sword light seemed to penetrate everything. Seeing that, Jian Wushuang couldn't help marveling at Junyi's outstanding mastery of sword principle. He moved and brandished his triple-kill sword casually. An ordinary move hit right on the sword edge of Junyi's long sword and deflected her attack instantly. Then 3 more moves went towards Junyi in succession. It horrified Junyi. She brandished her long sword and barely managed to block those attacks, while her body took a few steps backward. His swordsmanship is so fast. Stabilizing herself, Junyi looked over at Jian Wushuang. I have to go all out to beat him. As soon as she finished saying this, a mighty sword essence burst from her. It turned into a fog coming at Jian Wushuang. What's this? Jian Wushuang looked at the gray fog with confusion. The next moment he felt traces of killing intent from it, but he found that he was trapped and couldn't move. Such a strange skill. Jian Wushuang was shocked by this. Junyi attacked again. Bang. Her body suddenly flew at Jian Wushuang, then her long sword turned into a flowing light rushing towards him at an amazing speed. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly and lifted up his long sword, in which a trace of the origin of the world was contained. Clang. Junyi's cyan long sword was knocked off, and her body was also beaten back. Coming to a stop, Junyi looked at Jian Wushuang with shocked eyes. Though I have used Sword Realm, I still lose completely. His swordsmanship is so strong. What's the skill of turning sword essence into fog? Suddenly Jian Wushuang asked her. Sword fog. Junyi told him, one move of Sword Realm, which is a sword principle secret in Daluo Heaven Sect. Sword Realm? Jian Wushuang felt curious. It was so special. Trapped in the fog he found it hard to move. If he didn't use his origin power, he could not defeat her so easily. You said that you were a disciple of Daluo Heaven Sect. I'm just about to go there, would you mind leading the way? Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Both Junyi and the green-haired maiden behind her smiled. They thought Jian Wushuang was going to Daluo Heaven Sect to learn, and it was a good thing, especially after they saw that he was quite good at sword principle. We welcome you, please follow us. Junyi said this, then she and the green-haired maiden led Jian Wushuang along. Soon they came to an old sect. Located at the top of a mountain, the old sect was magnificent, much larger and awe-inspiring than those Jian Wushuang had seen before. Led by Junyi, Jian Wushuang wasn't stopped by the gatekeepers of Daluo Heaven Sect. They came to a hall. Please wait here for a minute. After saying this, Junyi and that green-haired maiden left. A while later, Junyi and a black-haired elder came. Junyi, is he the one you told me who is much stronger than you in sword principle? The black-haired elder looked at Jian Wushuang. Yes. Junyi nodded, then she said to Jian Wushuang, Swordsman, this is our law-enforcing elder, Elder Qiuing. Oh, law-enforcing elder? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew there were law-enforcing elder in older sects, such as the law-enforcing elder in Wilderness Sword Sect. They were more like senior servants dealing with affairs of the sect, but they were actually not the top executives of the old sections. There was House of Elders in these old sects, and these elders were top powerhouses in the core of an old sect. Nice to meet you, Elder Qiu. Jian Wushuang said politely. Make yourself at home. Qiuing waved his hands and sat on a chair in front of him casually. Junyi said that your swordsmanship was good. Judging from your age, you came here for a coach, right? No. Jian Wushuang shook his head and replied. No. Junyi was surprised and Qiuing frowned as well. What are you coming for? Qiuing asked. I was asked by someone to visit Ling Han, the 9th elder of Daluo Heaven Sect. Is he here? Jian Wushuang said. The 9th elder? Qiuing's face changed, looking Jian Wushuang up and down, then sneered. Young man, is Elder Ling Han someone you can see if you want to? Even it were me, I see him only a few times every year. I was asked to see him, besides, he would have been told that I would come. Jian Wushuang said with a calm voice. Enough. Qiuing shouted in a deep voice. He sneered, Young man, how could you boast without shame at such a young age? Elder Ling Han does not know you and apparently, you are here to make trouble. Throw him out. Elder Qiu. Junie was a little worried. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes slightly. Qiuing was kind before he knew that he didn't come here for a teacher but was looking for Elder Ling Han. 2 disciples outside the gate came in. Seeing that, Jian Wushuang's face turned cold, then he sneered, I didn't expect that the Daluo Heaven Sect would treat a guest like this. I will leave. Jian Wushuang wasn't in the mood to explain. He stopped just before leaving. By the way, this is the token, proving that I have come and kept my promise, but you didn't believe it. Jian Wushuang threw the token which Wang Yuan gave him to Qiuing, then he left directly. Chapter 265, An Apology. Chapter 265, An Apology. After Jian Wushuang left. Elder Qiu, swordsman might really come to visit Elder Ling Han. Isn't it a little overbearing to throw him out without checking? Junie said in a low voice. Junie, you think highly of him. He is so young, how could he have a relationship with Elder Ling Han? It must because he heard about Elder Ling Han and came here to acknowledge Elder Ling Han as a master. Many came for that each year. Qiuing didn't take it seriously. Besides, Elder Ling Han and other Daluo Heaven Sect elders are busy in an event. Even it was me having no chance to see him, let alone him, how is it possible? As for the token. Qiuing glanced at the token Jian Wushuang threw on the ground with disdain. While he looked at the token more carefully, his face changed at once. The token, Qiuing stared at it, is the Grand Elixir token. Qiuing was struck dumb with amazement. No matter Holy Emperor Palace or Alchemy School, they had their own token as a pledge. There was a special mark on it, no one dared to counterfeit it. Holy Emperor token represented Holy Emperor Palace and Grand Elixir token represented the Alchemy School. Could it be the Grand Elixir token? Qiuing was shocked with mouth and eyes opening wide. A moment later, dozens of roars and Daluo Heaven Sect rose to the sky. Hurry up, act separately, find him. They were led by a silver-robed and gray-haired elder, who was the 9th elder of Daluo Heaven Sect. Ling Han, however, his face was filled with sadness now. You were so overbearing to throw him out without asking clearly? When did the people of Daluo Heaven Sect become so rampant? Qiuing, you better pray he hasn't gone far so that Daluo Heaven Sect could make up for this. Otherwise, you will be sacked from the law-enforcing elder position. Ling Han scolded him with a raspy voice, such a good-for-nothing. Scolded by Ling Han heavily, Qiuing lowered his head and dared not to look at him at all. He knew he was in trouble this time. He had never thought that such a young man who was about 20 years old at most could have such a background. Elder Ling Han, there he is. Junie, who followed as well, shouted suddenly. Ling Han immediately looked down and found a black-robed man with a long sword on his back sitting quietly at the top of a mountain, who seemed to be waiting for them. Thank God he is waiting for us, things aren't going so bad. Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Jian Wushuang, then he and others landed slowly in front of Jian Wushuang. Fellow swordsman, I am Ling Han. Ling Han said with a humble voice. Jian Wushuang, sitting cross-legged on the ground, opened his eyes slowly. Then he closed his eyes again after glancing at them, saying, such an arrogant Daluo Heaven Sect, it's hard to imagine what would become of you if you are one of the 8 top sects in Nanyang continent. I must give you an apology for the oversight. Ling Han played up to Jian Wushuang with a smile, then he glanced at Qiuing next to him, come over here. Qiuing walked to Jian Wushuang in dejection and apologized, Mr. Swordsman, please excuse me for having offended you just now, I'm so sorry. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, glanced at Qiuing, Daluo Heaven Sect is big and well off and will soon replace Wilderness Sword Sect as one of the 8 top sects in Nanyang continent, how could you care about a young man? Qiuing was embarrassed. Qiuing. Ling Han looked at Qiuing and shouted, from now on, you are removed from law-enforcing elder and will be punished by sweeping the floor in front of the mountain gate. Even if a normal gold core disciple comes to learn, you have to lead him into the sect respectfully. If you do it well, in 3 years I will consider reinstating you, understand? Hearing this, Qiuing stood in astonishment, then he nodded vigorously. After punishing Qiuing, Ling Han turned to Jian Wushuang with a smile, fellow swordsman, what do you think now? Jian Wushuang raised his head, looked at Ling Han in surprise and then nodding slightly. You are a reasonable elder in Daluo Heaven Sect. Haha, since we have cleared the air, would you like to come over to have a chat? Ling Han invited him. Okay, Jian Wushuang didn't refuse him this time. Led by Ling Han, Jian Wushuang went to the Daluo Heaven Sect and walked into the same hall. In the hall, Ling Han and Jian Wushuang sat on 2 chairs respectively. Qiu Ying, Jun Yi and others were waiting outside the hall. Swordsman, you are the one alchemy school sent to give Daluo Heaven Sect a helping hand, aren't you? Ling Han looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded, but what can I do? Jian Wushuang was curious about that. Daluo Heaven Sect, which was strong enough to be a match for Wilderness Sword Sect, had lots of powerhouses including some in the Saint Realm. Is there anything which they could not do that needed his help? Here is the thing, Ling Han explained to him. You might know that this time Daluo Heaven Sect and Alchemy School are going to root out Wilderness Sword Sect together. However, not only does it require absolute power, but also a reasonable excuse is needed. After all, it is one of the 8 top sections. An excuse. Jian Wushuang frowned. Alchemy School and Daluo Heaven Sect could root Wilderness Sword Sect out directly. Why would you need an excuse? Haha, you might not know that the 8 top sects in Nanyang continent were a group. If Daluo Heaven Sect and Alchemy School rooted Wilderness Sword Sect out without any excuse, the Daluo Heaven Sect would be expelled by the other 7 top sects and cannot rank among the 8 top sections. Besides, Wilderness Sword Sect is backed by Holy Emperor Palace. If we attack Wilderness Sword Sect without any reason, Holy Emperor Palace will not leave the matter at that. Ling Han explained. So is that it? Jian Wushuang understood, but how do you find an excuse? Chapter 266, Questioning. Chapter 266, Questioning. It's quite easy to find an excuse. Ling Han said with a smile. In 3 days, Wilderness Sword Sect and Daluo Heaven Sect and many other old sects in northern region will hold a competition for disciples. It's held every year, and disciples of these sects under 30 years old are qualified. This year, the best genius of Wilderness Sword Sect is called Feng, son of Wilderness Sword Sect Master. Oh. Jian Wushuang realized what Daluo Heaven Sect needed him to do. Wilderness Sword Sect Master is strong and steady, but his Achilles heel is his son. Once his son dies he will go mad, said Ling Han. Jian Wushuang asked, so you want me to kill him in the competition? Yes, Ling Han nodded. It happened in the past that some disciples were killed during battles, they didn't mind too much. Therefore if you kill Feng accidentally, you will not be blamed. Don't worry about your identity. There are so many disciples in Daluo, it's normal for a genius appears. What we only worry about is Feng's strength. Ling Han stopped, then he continued, Feng has great talent and his cultivation of spiritual power has reached peak of the Yang Void Realm. Only one in Daluo Heaven Sect could be a match for him, but he is incapable of killing him, that's why we sought help from Alchemy School. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded. Daluo Heaven Sect needed an excuse to deal with Wilderness Sword Sect. If Feng was killed in the competition, Wilderness Sword Sect Master would go mad and do something crazy. Therefore, Daluo Heaven Sect would have a good excuse to fight back. Do you agree? Ling Han looked over at him. I have one condition, replied Jian Wushuang. What is it? Ling Han didn't turn a hair. On my way here, I was curious about a sword skill called Sword Realm which Jun Yi brandished when we fought with each other. I study sword principle so I want to have a look, could I? Jian Wushuang said. Jian Wushuang was curious about it and at the same time he looked forward to it. Sword Realm? Ling Han raised his eyebrows. It is an extraordinary sword skill of high 3rd grade and even could be a match for a low 2nd grade, which is a high-level sword skill in Daluo Heaven Sect. In general, outsiders could not get it, but... In the next breath, Ling Han said, you are not an outsider strictly. If you promise to help us kill Feng in the competition, what will a sword skill of 3rd grade be? Okay, no problem. Jian Wushuang agreed. Ling Han smiled and then he asked in an intentional way, by the way, you look very young, how old are you? My age. 21 years old. Answered Jian Wushuang. He was over 20, certainly he could say he is 21 years old. 21. Ling Han frowned. How strong could he be at such a young age? May I know your cultivation of spiritual power level? Ling Han asked. Though Ling Han was the 9th elder of Daluo Heaven Sect, his cultivation was at half saint and did not reach the saint realm yet. Besides, Jian Wushuang was good at hiding his level because he cultivated heavenly creation skill. So he couldn't tell which level Jian Wushuang was at. Jian Wushuang didn't answer him, but his spiritual power spread after a quick action. As soon as his power was unleashed, Ling Han perceived it. Initial Yang Void Realm? Ling Han frowned more. Feng was at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Does Elder Ling Han think I am not strong enough? Jian Wushuang looked over at him with a smile. No, Ling Han shook his head, smiling. Since you are recommended by alchemy school, there must be a reason. Okay. Jian Wushuang smiled and didn't say more. Friend, let me take you to the place you shall live in. Ling Han brought Jian Wushuang to a courtyard. In the night there was a full moon. The main meeting hall of Daluo Heaven Sect was closed. Daluo Heaven Sect's master and many elders gathered here, among whom 4 were experts of the Saint Realm. Everything is ready and experts of the Saint Realm of Alchemy School will arrive in 2 days, waiting for the start. Daluo Heaven Sect's master, a handsome middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Elders in the hall were all excited at hearing that. They had waited for this day for so long. Elder Ling Han, did the genius sent by Alchemy School arrive? The middle-aged man looked over at Ling Han. He has come, but, though Ling Han nodded, his expression was strange. What? The middle-aged man asked. The genius called Swordsman, he is only 21 years old, more importantly, his cultivation of spiritual power is at initial Yang Void Realm. Ling Han said. Initial Yang Void Realm? The middle-aged man's eyes turned cold. Most of the Daluo Heaven Sect elders presented were also dissatisfied with it. What the hell is Alchemy School is doing, sending one of initial Yang Void Realm? There are many of initial Yang Void Realm in Daluo Heaven Sect. Why would we seek for one more from them? Initial Yang Void Realm, no matter how strong he is, how could he kill an expert at the peak of the Yang Void Realm? Hearing their questioning, Ling Han frowned because he also doubted Jian Wushuang's strength. A powerhouse in initial Yang Void Realm, even if he is an exceptional genius, how strong could he be? While Feng, not only was he in peak of the Yang Void Realm, but he was also a nurtured genius in Wilderness Sword Sect. We have prepared so much for this day, any failure is not allowed in the final push. The handsome middle-aged man said with a cold voice, Elder Ling Han, try to figure out his real strength, you can send some geniuses to test him, openly or secretly. Figure out whether he is really in defiance of the natural order, otherwise we have to make other plans as soon as possible. Yes. Ling Han nodded and left immediately. Chapter 267, Potential. Chapter 267, Potential. Dim moonlight shone over the earth. Ling Han came to the courtyard where Jian Wushuang lived, followed by a noble and dignified young man. Listen, you say, try your best to make that man battle with all his strength. You can invite him to fight with you. If he doesn't agree, you can force him to do so, but do not hurt him too badly, understand? Looking at the young man, Ling Han warned. The young man was called Yi Sei, the strongest among the young generation in Daluo Heaven Sect. In the young generation of Daluo Heaven Sect, he was the only one who was capable of fighting with Feng. I got it. Yi Sei nodded slightly. As he was talking, he was ready to go to the courtyard. Wait a minute, suddenly Ling Han shouted to stop him. What happened? Yi Sei looked over at him. Ling Han didn't say anything, but his eyes had turned to the courtyard. They could see Jian Wushuang wearing black, practicing swordsmanship alone. There was nothing special before, but when Ling Han saw Jian Wushuang practicing swordsmanship, his eyes narrowed by instinct. That is, the origin? Ling Han was shocked. As a powerhouse of half-saint level, he had comprehended the origin and he was familiar with it. He was not shocked that Jian Wushuang had comprehended the origin, but that while Jian Wushuang was practicing swordsmanship, the origin had inspired the force of the heaven and the earth. In the courtyard, Jian Wushuang was brandishing the sword freely. The sword light was sparkling under the moonlight. Those normal sword shadows seemed to shake the heaven and the earth. Each move inspired the source of heaven and earth. Motivating the heaven and the earth, this is potential. Ling Han's eyes were full of astonishment. It's weird. Seeing Jian Wushuang practicing swordsmanship, Yi Sei also narrowed his eyes. Yi Sei, go to the hall immediately, bring the sect master and elders here. Ling Han told him. What? Yi Sei was shocked. Hurry. Ling Han spoke seriously. Yes. Yi Sei left. Soon Daoyuo Heaven Sect's master and elders came to Ling Han. When they arrived, they were attracted by what was happening in the courtyard. This is motivating the source of heaven and earth. Potential, the first level of source enlightenment. How old is he? How could he reach such a level of source enlightenment? The sect master and elders were all shocked. There were 3 levels of source enlightenment. The first one was potential. Even though it was the first level, it was hard to reach. It would take a normal expert of the Saint Realm dozens of years to reach it. If one reached it, he would be recognized as a powerhouse in the Saint Realm. But now they saw a young man who was about 20 years old, and his cultivation of spiritual power was in the initial Yang Void Realm, who had reached such a level of source enlightenment. Ling Han, he is the genius invited by alchemy school? An elder asked directly. Yes, he is. Ling Han nodded seriously. He is just 21 years old. How could he reach such a level of source enlightenment? The elder sighed with emotion. Among these people, sect master and 2 elders who were in divine transcendence, both the 2 elders had not reached the potential level of source enlightenment. That is to say, Jian Wushuang's level in source enlightenment was higher than them both. While I'm just getting Yi Sei to sound out his real strength, I saw that. Therefore I let him bring you here. Ling Han said. Well done. The sect master nodded. Even though his cultivation of spiritual power was in initial Yang Void Realm, he could fight with one in peak of the Yang Void Realm with his source enlightenment. Maybe he has other cards, perhaps he could really kill one at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Hearing that, elders around him all agreed. Haha, I thought he was a normal person of initial Yang Void Realm. It turns out that I am wrong. Thinking about this carefully, it's beneficial for the alchemy school to wipe out Wilderness Sword Sect. How could they send a normal initial Yang Void Realm here? Though his cultivation of spiritual power is a little bit low, it's hard to judge his real strength. After seeing Jian Wushuang's performance in source enlightenment, those elders who were not satisfied with Jian Wushuang's low cultivation of spiritual power changed their attitude. It was incredible for a 21-year-old youth to reach the potential level in source enlightenment. Compared with that, it was easier for one in initial realm of Yang Void Realm to kill one at peak of the Yang Void Realm. By the way, did the young man request for something when he promised to give us a helping hand? The sect master asked. Yes, he asked for the Sword Realm. Ling Han replied. Give it to him. The sect master said smilingly. Give it to him now. The competition will start in 3 days. If he could comprehend the Sword Realm, his strength will improve and he would be much more capable of killing Chen Feng. Yes, master. Ling Han nodded. After taking the Sword Realm, he went to Jian Wushuang. In the courtyard, Jian Wushuang had stopped practicing. He stood there, closing his eyes. Potential, lift the heavy as if it is light, motivate the heaven and the earth. I was wondering how it motivated. Now I know it is the origin that motivates the source energy. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes with a smile. These days he was studying the first level of source enlightenment, potential. Just now, something flashed in his brain. It happened. People would be jealous if they knew how he got it. After all, so many powerhouses, including some experts of the Saint Realm, went to great pains but failed. However, Jian Wushuang reached it by random inspiration. Of course, this was because Jian Wushuang had great talent in meditation, but partly also because of his sword soul. Sword soul not only made it easier for him to comprehend sword essence, but also played an incomparable role in origin comprehension. Chapter 268, Let the Games Begin. Chapter 268, Let the Games Begin. I'll prove myself to be worthy of Sword Soul. The corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth raised. Originally during the destruction of the bloodline of Sword Ancestor and all of its extreme power, none of the ordinary disciples paid any mind to the mansion of Sword Marquis. However, when the awakening of a genius with Sword Soul appeared, they immediately sent someone to dispose of him. Sword Soul truly is extraordinary. Sword Soul not only allowed him to grasp sword essence faster than ordinary people, but he could also sense the origin at a similarly fast rate as well. It wasn't surprising then that when that mysterious man had been sent to seize his mother and father, he had used the Sword Soul's Jian Nantian to wrest them away. He's grasped the origin up to this level, however my strength has also increased by no small amount. Jian Wushuang thought. Suddenly, as he raised his head, he saw a figure descending into the courtyard. Swordsman, my friend. Ling Han said with a smile. Elder Ling Han, what have you come at such an hour to find me for? Jian Wushuang glanced over. Just then, as he had been practicing his swordsmanship, he had faintly sensed that someone was around. Now he could see that this had been the case. Does my friend the swordsman not want my Daluo Heaven Sect sword realm? I've come here just for this purpose. As he spoke, Ling Han took a tome out from the interspatial ring and handed it to Jian Wushuang. Sword realm? Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up, but then he laughed. I thought that the Daluo Heaven Sect would hand me this only after the task was completed. Ling Han laughed, but inwardly he felt embarrassed. Previously they indeed had planned to hand him the sword realm after Jian Wushuang had completed the task of beheading Feng. However, just a moment ago they had seen Jian Wushuang's understanding of the origin, causing them to temporarily change their minds. My friend swordsman, there are still 3 days remaining. You can take this sword skill and study it well, perhaps it will have numerous benefits for you. I won't bother you any further today and take my leave. Ling Han left immediately after he was finished speaking. Jian Wushuang immediately began to flip through the tome. After some time Jian Wushuang closed the tome. Sword realm, not bad. Jian Wushuang said with a grin. Sword realm truly was a rather unique sword skill. It would propel the sword essence into becoming a small-scale realm of sword essence, and would constantly attack and hinder the opposition. Even though it was quite difficult to accurately read an opponent, with this you could exert a tremendous influence over them. That time when Jian Wushuang had fallen into Junyi's realm of sword essence, it was as if he had fallen into a deep quagmire, and it had become significantly more difficult to move. Also, the sword realm had 3 types: sword fog, sword tide, and sea-like sword form. As Junyi had implemented the sword fog, it was only the first move of the sword realm. Grasping this first move was not difficult at all. However, the second move sword tide and third move sea-like sword form were not as simple. Once in the Daluo Heaven Sect there were quite a few people studying these sword skills, but the majority of them could only reach the level of sword fog. Very few could reach sword tide, and as for sea-like sword form, the Daluo Heaven Sect had never had any person who was studying the sword realm reach that stage. I'm afraid the reason that the Daluo Heaven Sect has given me this sword realm tonight is that they want me to grasp this move sword fog within these 3 days. After 3 days when I battle Feng, he'll have grasped some higher level moves. Jian Wushuang sneered. He also guessed there existed some doubt amongst the people in the Daluo Heaven Sect in regards to his power, but he didn't care. He would handle this. After 3 days he would kill Feng, and with the matter settled he would leave. As for how the people in the Daluo Heaven Sect saw him, he couldn't care less. 3 days' time passed quickly. Every year all of the old sects in the northern region would hold the first meeting of the disciples, and it had begun. In the early morning as the sky glimmered with the first light of dawn, a few genius disciples from the young generation of the Daluo Heaven Sect as well as Jian Wushuang arrived at the giant martial arts practice field, Ling Han craning his neck to see all the way. The martial arts practice field was already packed with spectators who had come to see this coming together of so many experts. The geniuses from the Daluo Heaven Sect sat down in the seats at the top row of the martial arts practice field, but Ling Han had left for the moment. Jian Wushuang was also close behind as he sat down in the back row, his eyes slightly closed. The genius disciples from the Daluo Heaven Sect that were around would glance at him from time to time, odd expressions on their faces. Senior brother, you say, who is this? Is he also a disciple of our Daluo Heaven Sect? Why have I never seen him before? A disciple couldn't refrain from inquiring. Shut up, don't ask questions. Yisei chided and said no more. As the Daluo Heaven Sect had been planning this matter, only the elders of the highest level were aware. Yisei was the first person amongst the younger generation of disciples and the only person who was qualified to contend against the genius Feng. He knew about this matter and knew all about Jian Wushuang's identity. As for the other geniuses, however, including Junyi, they knew nothing. Just then, a row of a dozen or so people slowly came out of the void and onto the martial arts practice field. When these people appeared, they immediately drew the attention of all the experts of all the sects in the martial arts practice field. These dozen or so people, they came from the Wilderness Sword Sect. Even though the Wilderness Sword Sect had declined much in recent years, they were still overlords in this northern region and were still number 1 of the top 8 sections. Even though the Daluo Heaven Sect's strength was sufficient to go up against the Wilderness Sword Sect, when faced with the might of their reputation, it started to feel like they were a bit inferior to them. Due to this, the Daluo Heaven Sect always wanted to take the place of the Wilderness Sword Sect. This group of people was headed by a baby-faced purple-haired man. He had a slender frame and there seemed to be some arrogance in his appearance. After he had sat down and seen the geniuses from the Daluo Heaven Sect, the corners of his mouth had perked up. "Yisei, long time no see," the purple-haired man said with a smile, but as he raised his head, you could sense that he was looking down on them. "Chen Feng." Yisei raised his head and glanced at the purple-haired man. "It has been a long time. It seems that the two of us have never fought either. In today's match you must lose too terribly," Chen Feng said as if he was joking. Yisei's eyes narrowed and he didn't respond. Chen Feng also didn't press. Afterwards his gaze moved and concentrated on Junyi. Seeing Junyi, a look of surprise spread across Chen Feng's face. "Junyi, it's been a long time for the two of us as well. I heard that you were outside training and in the course of your training you ran into a conflict with a middle-sized empire. What's wrong? Did you sustain any injuries? What middle-sized empire would dare disrespect you? Tell me, I'll send someone to take care of them and give them a taste of your wrath." "It's just a misunderstanding between me and that middle-sized empire. There's no real conflict at all. I can only express my appreciation for your kind gesture." Junyi sat with an ice-cold expression, appearing utterly detached and indifferent. "Oh, so it's like this?" Chen Feng nodded but then smiled. "Then you should be careful. If you run into any issues, let me know directly. If I run into any trouble, I have my own sect's senior brothers or elders. I won't cause you any trouble," Junyi said coldly. Hearing this, Chen Feng's face brightened like before and seemed full of delight, but there was a certain foreboding in his eyes. After he turned around, his face changed and became distorted. He cursed quietly, "Filthy bitch, sooner or later there will be a day where I'll make you kneel down in front of me and obey." Chapter 269 Chen Feng. Chapter 269, Chen Feng. He's Chen Feng? Sitting in his chair, Jian Wushuang had also seen the purple-haired man. However, Chen Feng only had eyes for Yisei and Junyi. He hadn't paid him any mind at all. The gathering would begin soon. The process for this gathering between the disciples of the various old sects was exceedingly simple. They would simply go out onto the martial arts practice field, and every sect's genius disciple could make contact with whomever they wished. Whoever you wanted to fight with, you would step in front of them and ask for a fight. For the most part, none of them would refuse. They quickly went out onto the martial arts practice field and each match began amongst the disciples. In the beginning, Jian Wushuang watched with keen interest. He had to say, the theory and power of these old sect geniuses was not ordinary. Whether it was their cultivation of spiritual power or realization of various concepts, they were all significantly stronger than the geniuses of the 12 Northwestern dynasties. However, after watching 3 matches he lost interest. The reason was simple. In all of the fights between the disciples they pulled their punches. It was merely an ordinary battle in order to compare notes with one another. None of them were true life-or-death brawls. When he had been a part of the easternmost hunting in the beginning of the Tianzong dynasty, the selection battles were all life-or-death struggles from the start. For the sake of gaining the favor of the old sects, everyone used every last ounce of their strength in order to attempt to kill their opponent. A great number of experts perished. The cruelty of the easternmost hunting was extreme compared to this so-called gathering of disciples. In comparison to the easternmost hunting, even though the level of power of the disciples in this gathering between the old sects was quite high, the nature of the whole event was completely different. "Swordsman, my friend, what do you think of these sects' geniuses?" Ling Han glanced over. "They're all right," Jian Wushuang responded unenthusiastically. Ling Han raised his eyebrows and said no more. Half the day passed quickly. During this period of time, there were no less than a dozen of these matches where the old sect disciples took notes and learned from one another. However, despite the fact that there were so many confrontations, the most disastrous event was merely that one genius sustained an injury. In all of the other matches they pulled their punches and didn't overdo it. Every sect's disciple has come out, all that's left is our Daluo Heaven Sect and the Wilderness Sword Sect. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. "Yisei, it's almost time." Ling Han looked at Yisei, who immediately nodded his head in understanding and then stood up. As he got up, nearly all eyes in the entire martial arts practice field were on him. Yisei's coming out to the arena. Haha, finally the climax of this gathering of disciples has arrived. We've been here all day, finally there's something worth seeing. All of the sect experts in the arena sighed. After Yi Sei stood up, he quickly walked into the center of the martial arts practice field and directed his gaze towards the Wilderness Sword Sect. Chen Feng, come out. Out of all of the young generation disciples and all of the sects of the northern region, only you can battle with me. Yi Sei's voice carried forward, echoing throughout the interior of the entire martial arts practice field. Even though his words were somewhat arrogant, there was no expert from any sect in the entire arena who was rubbed the wrong way. After all, Yi Sei spoke the truth. After hearing Yi Sei's words, that baby-faced purple-haired man who was in the midst of the Wilderness Sword Sect stood up. Chen Feng. Beside him, a voice rang out. It came from the tall and sturdy middle-aged leader of the Wilderness Sword Sect. The cultivation of this tall and sturdy middle-aged body was at the half-saint level, and he was an elder of the Wilderness Sword Sect as well. This gathering of the disciples would happen once every year. It was just an ordinary occasion to exchange ideas and compare notes, so many of the sects from the northern region didn't attach a great deal of importance to it. The Wilderness Sword Sect was like this as well, so ordinarily an expert of the Saint realm would not make an appearance. Be careful, and for the honor of our Wilderness Sword Sect, defeat this Yi Sei, the tall and sturdy middle-aged man said. Elderly, you can rest easy, Chen Feng said confidently. Soon after he appeared atop the martial arts practice field. In merely an instant, Chen Feng and Yi Sei were trading blows. The power of these two was far stronger than the rest of the geniuses in the gathering. As they fought, the activity was enormous and it attracted the gaze of everyone. Even Jian Wushuang looked over in this moment. Not bad. Jian Wushuang watched the fierce battle between the two of them. The two of them had already been fighting for some time. They had fought to a standstill, and Jian Wushuang had a definite understanding of their strength. Either of these two is much stronger than Mo Lingtian whom I killed. However, power has its limits, and even though their realization of some concepts are exceptionally high, neither of them has comprehended origin. Jian Wushuang said inwardly. Origin was far greater than any high-end concept. In the entire Nanyang continent, the amount of those who had grasped the Yin-Yang Void Realm's origin was incredibly scarce. It seemed in the ancestor's land, the first trial was to allow him to grasp the origin of the Yin-Yang Void Realm. Even though Chen Feng and Yi Sei could be considered first-class geniuses in the Nanyang continent, the distance between their grasping of the origin still left them coming up short. Swordsman, my friend, what of Chen Feng's strength? Are you sure you can face him? Ling Han looked towards Jian Wushuang. I'll kill him, I'm sure. Jian Wushuang replied with indifference. He spoke the truth. At peak of the Yang Void Realm cultivation, but to still have not yet grasped origin. Even if it had been a month ago, it wouldn't have been hard for him to kill this Chen Feng. However, now that he had attained the level of source enlightenment, his power has increased exponentially. Killing him would be even easier. Ling Han furrowed his brow and a smile revealed itself on his face. At this moment, in the middle of the martial arts practice field, the battle had reached a fever pitch. There was the sound of a violent clash, and in the wake of it there was finally an outcome in this confrontation between the two of them. Yi Sei's face was pale as he stood there, and remnants of blood were on the corners of his mouth. Haha, Yi Sei, your strength, is that all you've got? Chen Feng stood tall and upright, as arrogant as he had seemed before in the void. He looked at Yi Sei with a high and mighty air. Humph, you got lucky. Yi Sei feigned anger as he snorted coldly, then turned and walked back towards the direction of the Daluo Heaven sect. Senior brother Yi Sei. Junie stood up and came over, astonishment in his eyes. How could you lose to Chen Feng? Your finishing blow obviously still hasn't come to full fruition. Don't ask so many questions. Ling Han immediately chided. Junie was startled, and his brow furrowed more deeply. Yi Sei glanced at Ling Han, who nodded, relax. Yi Sei sat down and lightly let out a breath of air. He aimed his gaze at Jian Wushuang. At this moment, Ling Han also looked towards Jian Wushuang. Swordsman, my friend, you're up. Ling Han began to speak. I'm a man of my word and I keep my promises. Jian Wushuang stood up. Be careful, Chen Feng's power isn't so simple. Even though just then I didn't do my utmost, I could sense that if I had it still wouldn't be easy to defeat him. Yi Sei warned. I'm not you. Jian Wushuang laughed insipidly, then strode towards the martial arts practice field. Chapter 270 Jian Wushuang displays his moves. Chapter 270, Jian Wushuang displays his moves. Yi Sei is defeated. Feng is definitely the number one among the young disciples in the Wilderness Sword Sect. His strength is really powerful. Before, I had been thinking that Yi Sei would win. However, the result is, what a disappointment Yi Sei is. I don't know what's wrong, but I have the feeling that Yi Sei didn't seem to have tried his utmost. At the exchange meeting, the experts from different sects were casually talking about the fight between Yi Sei and Feng a while ago. But no matter how they analyzed, the fight was over and Yi Sei had lost. The disciples in the Wilderness Sword Sect were all pleasantly surprised. The heavily built, middle-aged man who seemed the leader even laughed out brightly. Who else present wants to step up and take the challenge? Standing at the center of the martial arts practice field, Feng looked across, with a slight sneer flashing across his eyes. The disciples who were standing around the martial arts practice field looked at each other in dismay, with their heads secretly shaking. Even Yi Sei was defeated by Feng. How would the disciples in these sects have the courage to fight with Feng? However, at this moment, a black figure stood up from the disciples of the Daluo Heaven sect. He then slowly walked towards the center of the martial arts practice field. Suddenly, a large number of eyes moved upon the black figure from across the martial arts practice field. Everybody was staring at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang ignored their eyes, and walked to the center on the martial arts practice field. Looking at Feng who was in front of him, a clear and cold voice suddenly spewed out of his mouth. I am swordsman from the Daluo Heaven sect. Please enlighten me. The martial arts practice field was in tumult at once. Swordsman? Who is swordsman? I have never heard of you? Daluo Heaven sect? Is there a disciple named swordsman in the Daluo Heaven sect? The genius disciples of the old sects all looked odd. Being the two strongest sects in the whole northern region, the Wilderness Sword sect and the Daluo Heaven sect were naturally very attractive. So people knew how many disciples these two sects had and who they were. However, they had never heard that there was a genius disciple called swordsman in the Daluo Heaven sect. Where are you from? I have never heard of you and you want to fight with me? Get out of here, Feng snarled. He then lifted his hand and slashed his sword directly towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang shifted his body, and warded off this sword easily. Finally the sword light landed on the martial arts practice field, and suddenly there came to a huge sword scar on the ground. The sword scar was more than a half-meter wide. Although Jian Wushuang was warding off the sword. However, at the same time while he was warding off, he was activating his spiritual power. By then, his spiritual power broke out, and then his cultivation was naturally revealed in public. Noticing the spiritual power and breath spread out from Jian Wushuang, the experts on the whole martial arts practice field were stunned. Followed by an outburst of laughter. Haha, is this person kidding us? What did I see? An initial Yang Void Realm? Where is the idiot from? How dare an initial Yang Void Realm challenge Feng? Does the Daluo Heaven sect have no experts now? Why they send a young man who just achieved the initial Yang Void Realm to challenge? Numerous eyes around the practice field were fixed on Jian Wushuang with contempt and arrogance. The disciples from the Daluo Heaven sect who were standing aside also darkened their faces. Elder Ling Han, what's going on? A disciple from the Daluo Heaven sect asked. It was known that among the disciples from the Daluo Heaven sect who were at the meeting, the weakest one was in the exceptional Yang Void Realm level. No matter who stepped on the practice field, he might fail in defeating Feng, but at least he wouldn't cause laughter from the different sects. A disciple with initial Yang Void Realm level from the Daluo Heaven sect, and he attempted to challenge Feng who was at the peak of the Yang Void Realm level. If this got out, the Daluo Heaven sect would be a joke. Shut up, just watch. Don't ask too much, Lin Han snarled without explaining too much. Standing on the martial arts practice field, Feng also noticed Jian Wushuang's cultivation of spiritual power. He was extremely stunned, but followed by his laughter. Ha, are the experts in the Daluo Heaven sect all thoughtless people like you? Hearing this, the genius disciples from the Daluo Heaven sect all felt shame. They even wanted to find a rock and hide themselves under. However, Jian Wushuang's face was extremely cold. No need to talk nonsense. Just display your moves and show me your full strength. Otherwise, you will have no chance, Jian Wushuang said coldly. I won't have a chance? It's you who won't have a chance. Feng's face was cold. What an ignorant idiot. Since you are looking for a death, then I will help you out. No sooner had he uttered this that Feng suddenly moved his body. With a gliding move, Feng appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. At the same time he fiercely stabbed his long sword, and an overpowering wind-thunder essence realm suddenly broke out. The sword essence broke through the void and caused a burst of crackling sounds on the void. This sword was full of monstrous power. Feng had apparently activated his full strength. How come Feng dealt with an initial Yang Void realm with his full power? Does he want to? He didn't spare his strength. Is he trying to kill that young man? Even if that fellow is killed, so what? He is just initial Yang Void realm and he dares to challenge Feng, which was very arrogant. It's reasonable if he gets killed by Feng. And the Daoyuo Heaven Sect can't say anything afterwards, since their disciple is overconfident. Everybody was looking at them. It's unbelievable that Feng wants to kill me. Jian Wushuang sneered. Well, it saved me a lot of trouble. A second later, Jian Wushuang moved his body. Feng's eyes turned cold. He almost slashed his sword out with his utmost, which was even difficult for an expert at the peak of the Yang Void realm to block. Feng indeed wanted to kill Jian Wushuang. He didn't worry about the Daoyuo Heaven Sect giving him trouble, since Jian Wushuang was too overconfident. His sword had reached near Jian Wushuang, and was about to stab into Jian Wushuang's body. However, at this moment, Jian Wushuang suddenly looked up, and gave Feng a cold glance. The glance freaked Feng out, and Feng felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. Instantly, Jian Wushuang disappeared from Feng's view. Jian Wushuang just disappeared in front of Feng's eyes. What? This caught Feng by surprise. He had not reacted before he noticed a strong wind blowing from the side. Feng struggled to turn around, and happened to see a cold sword light gliding to him, and it glanced off his neck. Chi! There came the sound of a sword edge stabbing into the body, followed by a huge head flying off. Feng remained with his eyes widened. He felt a spell of dizziness, and with his fading vision, he saw a black figure in front of him. What is that? Feng subconsciously thought. But soon after he saw it clearly that the black figure was his body. Feng tried to say something. However, he could only utter a word. A second later his head just fell on the ground. It rolled on the ground for a few circles and then no more movements were heard. Chapter 271, Shocking Everyone. Chapter 271, Shocking Everyone. The whole martial arts practice field turned still immediately. Those geniuses and experts from different sects, including Daoyuo Heaven Sect, were shocked when they saw that Feng's head was thrown on the ground. Just now they all thought that Jian Wushuang, who was at the initial Yang Void realm yet still dared to fight with Feng, was just a joke. But now, in a flash, Feng was killed. Good job. Ling Han looked to be in ecstasy. He had been anxious whether Jian Wushuang would be able to kill Feng before, but now, just one move. On the other hand, in the Wilderness Sword Sect, the robust middle-aged man, the leader, and those geniuses were all shocked and speechless. They had looked down on Jian Wushuang before. The robust middle-aged man was shocked initially and then he became infuriated. Damn it, how dare he kill my disciple of the Wilderness Sword Sect? After roaring, the robust middle-aged man's figure moved out just like a thunderbolt. A salvo of horrible killing intent fell on Jian Wushuang instantly. Feng, who Jian Wushuang killed, was the son of the Wilderness Sword Sect master. Because of the death of Feng as a leading elder, he was unable to shoulder the guilt. Based on the character of Wilderness Sword Sect master, he would be killed cruelly if he returned to his sect without killing the murderer. The moment that the robust man approached Jian Wushuang, Ling Han also moved. Ling Han was ready to block the experts from the Wilderness Sword Sect if they joined in the fight. However, Ling Han did not have enough time to block the robust man. Jian Wushuang, who was standing at the center of the martial arts practice field, dashed toward the robust man at this moment. What is he doing? Ling Han was confounded. Based on his plan, Jian Wushuang would flee after killing Feng. However, he did not escape but dashed toward the robust man. If Jian Wushuang fled or even stood still, Ling Han was confident that he could block the robust man before he attacked Jian Wushuang. But now Jian Wushuang had dashed and the distance between Jian Wushuang and the robust man was narrowing. Ling Han was unable to block the robust man. He is crazy. Ling Han was overwhelmed. The experts from the different sects were looking at Jian Wushuang in shock. A super expert who was at the half-saint level approached him. He did not escape but dashed toward him. Was Jian Wushuang really insane? Of course not. A month ago, without executing soul devouring, based on the comprehension of origin and my swordsmanship, I could outclass the three-person sword formation executed by the three warriors at the level of the peak of the Yang Void Realm, including Mo Lingtian. My battle strength was not weaker than the warriors who was at the level of peak of the Yang Void Realm and had comprehended origin, even a little bit stronger. And now, my comprehension of origin has achieved this level, so my strength surged again. Warriors who are at the half-saint are not qualified to let me retreat. A salvo of terrific battle intent was condensing in Jian Wushuang's body. Other experts who were at the Yang Void Realm would escape without hesitation. However, at this moment he wanted to fight with the half-saint. An expert at the half-saint level. Let me try. Jian Wushuang's eyes gleamed and a terrific sword essence burst out from his body at the same time. Instantly, a thick blanket of gray fog covered the robust middle-aged man. Sword Realm, Sword Fog. After 3 days of learning Sword Realm, he had thoroughly mastered the moves, and this move he displayed was stronger than that which Jian displayed. The robust middle-aged man was caught in the Sword Realm, and his body was affected by the surrounding sword essence. At this time both his speed and power were hindered. Do you think that with this little trick you can save yourself? The robust middle-aged man roared and lots of thunderbolts burst out from his body surface to destroy everything in the world. His whole body became a thunder god of war, appearing in front of Jian Wushuang. Boom. A fist containing thousands of thunderbolts slammed directly into Jian Wushuang's head, and the terrible spiritual power burst out instantly. Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank and the triple-kill sword was trembling in his hands. Afterward, an imperious force of origin of the world was accumulating. During this accumulation the origin shook the heaven and earth, and then the origin surged to a new level. Selfless sword technique, 6th move. Shua. The incomparably gorgeous move, also containing a terrible incomparable power, flashed out. It collided with the overpowering fist. Boom. A loud noise like a roar of thunder erupted. Immediately they saw the place where the two attacks met. Boom, the terrific power was crazily crashing and colliding, and formed many blast waves. These blast waves materialized and rippled like water. And then those blast waves smashed into the ground below. The ground of the martial arts practice field was made of firm carbonite. Although more than 10 battles had occurred in the previous gathering, the ground was not damaged, barring a few little depressions made by the fiercely fight between Feng and Yisei. But at this time the ground of the entire martial arts practice field was torn up and turned into powder, blowing away. Only one confrontation and the effects were so surprising. Around the martial arts practice field, the geniuses and experts from different sects were also affected. Many people closed their eyes. Only a few strong experts could squint at the fierce battle at the center of the martial arts practice field. Alright, it was a duel. At the center of the martial arts practice field, the two tyrannical forces madly collided and no one was the clear winner. How could this be? That robust middle-aged man who was from the Wilderness Sword Sect was astonished. He was indeed a half-saint expert. Although he was still not doing his best, his fist could not be parried by a warrior who was at the level of the initial Yang Void Realm. Jian Wushuang, who was in front of him, said coldly, "A half-saint expert is not bad." After saying that, the power in the Jian Wushuang sword surged again, and then it directly forced the robust middle-aged man to retreat. The robust middle-aged man retreated to the void and was still confounded. Soon he raised his head again and his eyes filled with panic were focusing on Jian Wushuang firmly. He was ready to kill Jian Wushuang with his whole strength. However, at this point, humph! A cold groan was sounding out above the martial arts practice field suddenly. At the same time, a transcendent breath appeared. The breath represented an owner who was at the level of the divine transcendence. The people from the Wilderness Sword Sect are really overbearing. After the words finished, an expert of the Saint Realm from the Daluo Heaven Sect, who had been hiding in the dark for a long time, appeared. Chapter 272, Making Unfounded Charges. Chapter 272, Making Unfounded Charges. An expert of the Saint Realm. The robust middle-aged man who was ready to kill Jian Wushuang with his whole strength, was surprised. In the previous disciples' gathering, the team leader of every sect was only a half-saint expert. However, this time, the Daluo Heaven Sect had dispatched an expert of the Saint Realm to this gathering. This expert of the Saint Realm wore a gray robe and had gray hair but was very eye-catching. The fourth elder in the Daluo Heaven Sect, Lu Hanyue. It's him? The gray-robed elder was recognized by the surrounding experts from different sections. An expert from Wilderness Sword Sect wants to bully the juniors? Since that is the case, I also must bully juniors today. The gray-robed elder Lu Hanyue said coldly. Then, like a breeze blowing, his figure floated out. Elder Lu, the robust middle-aged man who was from the Wilderness Sword Sect, was speaking but interrupted by an incident where the space before him cracked. A hoary palm, containing vast spiritual power, slapped on his chest in an instant. Although he was a half-saint level expert, he had absolutely no resistance when he fought with a real Saint Realm expert, especially Lu Hanyue, who had stayed at the level for more than 10 years and had formed the saintly body. Immediately he only felt that an unprecedented giant force had passed from him. His dantian shattered and he was crushed at this moment. Immediately he spouted a large mouthful of blood. His body was flung like a broken kite. When he stabilized his body, his face was already pale. My dantian, my dantian. The robust man yelled in a fury. Lu Hanyue displayed this move with his whole strength and directly destroyed his dantian. Because of the Wilderness Sword Sect Sake, I have left your life. But your Wilderness Sword Sect must give me an account of what happened today. Lu Hanyue's voice reverberated through the whole martial arts practice field. All experts were shocked this time. The robust middle-aged man from the Wilderness Sword Sect looked furious. Obviously, your disciples of the Daluo Heaven Sect killed Feng. And then you destroyed the dantian of the half-saint expert from the Wilderness Sword Sect. But now you made unfounded claims that you should force the Wilderness Sword Sect to give you an account. Thinking about it more, in this disciples' gathering, it was normal that disciples couldn't control themselves and couldn't help but kill the other disciples. At the beginning, Feng wanted to kill Jian Wushuang, but Jian Wushuang killed him. It was not a crime. However, a half-saint expert from the Wilderness Sword Sect wanted to fight with Jian Wushuang. That was indeed excessive. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang had great strength. If a normal disciple fought with the half-saint expert, the disciples would be killed directly by the robust middle-aged man. Therefore, Lu Hanyue wanted Wilderness Sword Sect to give him an account. It was logical and reasonable. After thinking that, those experts from different sects all understood Lu Hanyue's request. However, the people from the Wilderness Sword Sect all gave a grievous look. An account. The robust middle-aged man muffled his voice at this time. Lu Hanyue, you are from the Daluo Heaven Sect and killed the disciple of our Wilderness Sword Sect. Besides, the disciple was the son of our sect master. In addition, you have destroyed my dantian. And you want our Wilderness Sword Sect to give you an account. This is too much bad. Wait for our Wilderness Sword Sect's account. Go. After saying that, the people from the Wilderness Sword Sect took Feng's body and then they left. After seeing the people from the Wilderness Sword Sect leave, Lu Hanyue smiled coldly. He waved his hands and then the people from the Daluo Heaven Sect also left. On the way to the Daluo Heaven Sect, Feng was killed and one elder's dantian was destroyed by fourth elder. They lost a lot. However, the Daluo Heaven Sect is always overbearing, so they will counterattack, Ling Han said with a smile. Thank you for today's achievement. Ling Han looked at Jian Wushuang. Not only him, but also at this moment all the disciples of the Daluo Heaven Sect were looking at Jian Wushuang with veneration. No one ever thought that the merely 21-year-old swordsman had such great strength, although his cultivation of spiritual power was only the initial Yang Void realm. Feng was the peak of the Yang Void realm at least, and he was as strong as Yi Sei, who was the strongest among them. However, he was killed by Jian Wushuang's one move. What's more important was that Jian Wushuang did not retreat but dashed toward the half-saint expert from the Wilderness Sword Sect. And then the half-saint expert retreated. It was incredible. These events looked impossible for those disciples, but Jian Wushuang had done it. Not to mention them, even the fourth elder Lu Hanyue, who was at divine transcendence, looked at Jian Wushuang strangely. Before he had been hiding in the dark, he saw everything, including the scene that Jian Wushuang displayed his move. The strength Jian Wushuang showed did not match with his age. Not long after, everyone returned to the Daluo Heaven Sect. The Daluo Heaven Sect sect master and many elders had been waiting outside the gate. You are back. Daluo Heaven Sect master, a mighty handsome middle-aged man, smiled gently and looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. Sect Master Chen Feng was killed and the Wilderness Sword Sect half-saint experts Dan Tian was destroyed by the fourth elder, Ling Han directly said. Oh. Daluo Heaven Sect Master lifted his brows and nodded without any surprise. That made Ling Han surprised. Thinking about this, Sect Master had been worried about whether Jian Wushuang could kill Chen Feng before leaving. But now Sect Master's attitude had changed thoroughly. My little friend, swordsman, Daluo Heaven Sect Master looked at Jian Wushuang and said, I have a letter from the alchemy school. You should read it. After saying this he handed the letter to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang raised her eyebrows. After taking the letter he opened it and skimmed it. And then Jian Wushuang laughed. Daluo Heaven Sect Master also looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile and said, Father and son are both exceptional geniuses and pursue their own goals together in the heaven and earth. Although you are young, your strength, even in our sect, is amazing. A small battle result. It's not bad, Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and said, Everybody, I am here because of the invitation of alchemy school. I have completed your request. I have other things to do. Goodbye. Do you want to leave now? Daluo Heaven Sect Master was slightly surprised and then he nodded. Okay. We will meet again. If you face any troubles you can contact our Daluo Heaven Sect. We will try our best to help you. Jian Wushuang lifted his brow and cupped his hands before his chest. Then he turned around and left. Chapter 273 The Bounty. Chapter 273, The Bounty. After Jian Wushuang left, Ling Han asked in amazement, What's going on, Your Honor? The sect master of the Daluo Heaven Sect handed over the letter to Ling Han. Read yourself. Taking the letter, Ling Han unfolded it and started reading. Yi Sei, Jun Yi, and other disciples of the sect gathered around him. A bounty? As soon as Ling Han read the letter, he seemed to realize something and continued reading. This letter was about a reward offered by Holy Emperor Palace for two people. The first one was Jian Nantian. Jian Nantian, who is from Tianzong dynasty with half-saint cultivation, killed an expert of the saint realm of us Holy Emperor Palace. Jian Wushuang, Jian Nanshan's son, who is in the initial Yang Void realm and has comprehended the slaughter source and origin of the world, had successfully contended with two experts of the saint realm at one time for a while. He is a top genius of the Nanyang continent. These two people are the mortal enemies of us Holy Emperor Palace. Whoever of the sects or solitary experts kills one of them will be awarded a third-grade magic weapon of high rank. Besides, he will also be able to choose one second-grade source secrets of high rank of the palace from 8 at will. Reading the letter, Ling Han and others were both startled. How formidable they are. Can you believe they're actually father and son? The father killed one expert of the saint realm by one shot while the son, in the initial Yang Void realm, contended with two experts of the saint realm at one time. How incredible. It was indeed incredible. Geniuses such as Yi Sei, Jun Yi, and the others of the Daluo Heaven Sect were very gifted, but compared with the two men who were wanted in the letter, they were no match for them. What's more, that two were father and son. Their portraits are below the words, "Take a careful look," said the sect master of the Daluo Heaven Sect. Ling Han and others immediately looked down at the two portraits. The first portrait was of an ethereal gray-haired man with whom they were both unfamiliar. The second one was a young man. Looking at him, Ling Han and others were frozen. He is, Ling Han widened his eyes. Yes, he is that swordsman. Jun Yi and Yi Sei gasped. Although this portrait was not that clear, they recognized Jian Wushuang at one glance as they had stayed with him for a few days. He helped them kill Chen Feng and left just now. It was until now that they finally understood why the sect master of the Daluo Heaven Sect seemed not surprised at all at Jian Wushuang's killing Chen Feng. The reason was that he had already read the letter before and knew that swordsman was Jian Wushuang. After all, it was no surprise that a top genius, with the ability to contend with two experts of the saint realm at one time, could kill a man who was in the peak of the Yang Void realm and had never comprehended origin. Amazing! Ling Han said in admiration. Yet, the man he was praising had already left Daluo Heaven Sect. In the void above the snow-covered land, Jian Wushuang sped up flying ahead, thinking about the bounty. How surprising. The Holy Emperor Palace would think so highly of father and me. Jian Wushuang thought with a smile. He had read the letter too and it was really astonishing even to him. A third-grade magic weapon of high rank. 1 second-grade source secrets of high rank. Both the two were very valuable and rare. As for the magic weapons, they were rarely seen in the whole Nanyang continent. Normally, a third-grade magic weapon of low rank would be enough to make the ordinary experts of the Saint Realm green with envy, let alone the one of high rank, which would drive them crazy. When it came to the second-grade source secrets of high rank, it must be reminded that even the top sects like the Daluo Heaven Sect and the Wilderness Sword Sect only had second-grade source secrets of low rank or middle rank at best. Only the super sects like the Holy Emperor Palace and the Alchemy School could own second-grade source secrets of high rank. As rich and powerful as the Holy Emperor Palace was, it could only get 8 such kinds of source secrets, which clearly revealed the difficulty to get such things. The experts of the Saint Realm would definitely fight fiercely for it. Putting the two conditions together, the reward would set the whole Nanyang continent alight. My triple kill sword is a magic weapon as well, and it has restored to second grade. I also got 2 kinds of third-grade source secrets in my ancestors' land. But most of the experts of the Saint Realm and Nanyang continent don't have such good luck as I do. I guess large numbers of the experts of the Saint Realm are eyeing Father and me after the reward was offered. Jian Wushuang thought. He was right. The Holy Emperor Palace's posting the bounty got the whole Nanyang continent astir. The forces of the various sects, including countless solitary experts, were shocked about the great value of the reward. To be able to choose a third-grade magic weapon of high rank and a second-grade source secrets of high rank was absolutely a sky-high reward. Many senior experts bore both Jian Wushuang and Jian Nantian names and appearance in their mind. Once they found their tracks, the other experts would certainly try to find Jian Wushuang and Jian Nantian and kill them, carrying their bodies to Holy Emperor Palace for the reward. The bounty had made Jian Wushuang and Jian Nantian the enemies of the numerous experts of the Saint Realm and Nanyang continent, making the choices the two faced difficult. Nanyang continent is large, but now the places I can go are fewer because of the bounty. Maybe Tang Dynasty is the only choice for me. Jian Wushuang thought. In Nanyang continent, Tang Dynasty was the place of the most disarray and anarchy. A great number of experts wanted by various sects could be found therein. Therefore, even if Jian Wushuang sometimes showed his strong battle strength in the Tang Dynasty, it wouldn't draw others' attention, as it was a vast land of multitudinous experts. Pass over the northern region and I can get to Tang Dynasty within 10 days at my full speed. Eyes shining, Jian Wushuang started rushing toward the Tang Dynasty with full strength. At the same time, on the peak of a giant mountain in one large empire, a white-haired man, who seemed to be a bit gloomy, was drinking all by himself with his hair fluttering. Beside his feet lay several corpses, and one of them was an expert of divine transcendence, whose breath was still roaring even after dying. Reading through the bounty in his hand, the man Jian Nantian smiled contemptuously, and with power gathering in his hand, the bounty instantly turned to ashes. Come for my head if you dare. Chapter 274, The Kingdom of Death. Chapter 274, The Kingdom of Death. As the number 1 dynasty in Nanyang continent, the Tang Dynasty was famous as a slaughter dynasty. It was vast with an area 10 times larger than that of ordinary large empires and was internally divided into 21 large prefectures, each prefecture taking up a large space with many cities. Jian Wushuang rushed along the northern region and 10 days later he made it to the domain of the Tang Dynasty. The first city he saw was the Devil Heart city of Skywave Prefecture. This city was just one common city among the thousands of cities in the Tang Dynasty. In spite of this, the city was still full of chaos and danger. Among the many gangs in the Devil Heart City, the Bloodseeker Gang and the Hungry Wolf Gang were the strongest. These two evenly matched gangs had been battling with each other all the time in the city, leading to a violent fight every 2 or 3 days. Long sword on his back, Jian Wushuang, who looked young but frosty, stepped into the Devil Heart City in black. There were a few people in the street. The surrounding buildings were tattered mostly because of the fierce battles, while the ground was riddled with potholes. However, in those dilapidated houses gathered some vociferous warriors in 2s and 3s. Those warriors' strength differed widely. The weaker ones were at the level of Gold Core while the stronger ones were at the level of Een Void. What they had in common was that they all showed a strong desire for killing. The Tang Dynasty was the heaven of killer but the hell of the merciful. Everyone here was decisive in killing, as all of them were the real experts who struggled up from nothing. When Jian Wushuang appeared, the entire street suddenly became quiet. The warriors in the surrounding buildings stopped talking, casting their cold eyes on Jian Wushuang. Such a young man, he seems no more than 20. That's very bold of him to come here at such a young age. Generally, there are only 3 kinds of people who'd like to venture out in the Tang dynasty. The first kind is the people wanted by powerful forces. They come in despair and want to seek their survivals here. The second kind is the genius from the big sections. They're gifted with extraordinary talent and come here on purpose for experience. The last kind is the warlike maniacs with the burning desire to kill and to grow stronger in the killing. I was wondering which kind of person this young man is. Whichever, there must be a story behind him. A man like him is always worth much. The surrounding warriors stared at Jian Wushuang, and some of them even stuck out their tongues, licking their lips. There were countless experts in the Tang dynasty, but they were generally older. When a young expert appeared in the Tang dynasty, it always meant that he was one of the 3 kinds of people and might have many treasures like an interspatial ring with him. Thus, Jian Wushuang's appearance attracted everyone's attention. Some of them were even targeting him. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 figures abruptly appeared beside Jian Wushuang like ghosts, and immediately 2 chilly flashes thrust toward Jian Wushuang's vitals from both left and right. Damn it. They are 1 step ahead of us. They're Qing Ling and Qing Hai, 2 brothers. Both of them were the experts in the initial Void realm. Beyond that, they were well-trained killers before coming to the Tang dynasty. Being attacked jointly by them, this young man is dead. All the surrounding warriors sighed when they heard this. Jian Wushuang stopped walking when he noticed 2 strong wind coming toward him, but he still looked calm. In the twinkling of an eye, he unsheathed the triple kill sword on his back, showing a cold sword light. When the sound of sword penetrating into flesh was heard twice, Jian Wushuang had already pushed his triple kill sword back into the sheath. He kept going forward while Qing Ling and Qing Hai were staying still in the void. But soon the brothers fell down to the ground. The street fell into silence for a moment. Until Jian Wushuang walked away, it suddenly burst into roaring. Qing Ling and Qing Hai were killed. Anyone spotted how he stabbed the brothers? No, I didn't even see him draw his sword. The warriors were all in amazement. An expert with the cultivation of spiritual power in the Yang Void realm said with a smile, "Even if it's me facing the attack like that, I could not say I can withstand it. Apparently we got another big fish in the city." But Qing Ling and Qing Hai were at high positions in the Hungry Wolf gang. I guess the gang won't let the young man go easily, according to their usual style. After casually killing the 2 men, Jian Wushuang went ahead, but he could not help thinking. As was said, the Tang dynasty is indeed a place of no rule and no bottom line. In such a place, the strong will kill the weak for the interspatial ring without hesitation as long as they spot one. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Besides, there are so many experts. In other dynasties, it's hard to see experts in the Yin-Yang Void realm, but in the Tang dynasty they are everywhere. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang was also shocked. Along the way he walked just now, he had seen more than 100 of warriors, and among them, there were more than a dozen of the people in the Yin-Yang Void realm, even including an expert in the Yang Void realm. I'm a newcomer in the Tang dynasty, so I must find a way to orient myself here first. Just as Jian Wushuang was thinking, he suddenly caught the sight of a restaurant in front of him. A restaurant? Jian Wushuang was surprised. He had passed through the street and had found no shop but shabby houses. This was the first restaurant he had seen in the city, which was also the only one there. Bloodmoon Hotel? Jian Wushuang thought for a while after seeing the restaurant's signboard and stepped directly into it. The first thing Jian Wushuang saw in the restaurant was a huge tablet, on which it was written, "Whoever damages anything like chairs, stools, wine pots and bowls herein will be charged for 100 times the value of the damage, excluding the experts in the Bloodmoon list." The handwriting on the tablet was elegant and stately. But upon seeing the tablet, Jian Wushuang's complexion turned odd. Chapter 275, The Bloodmoon Hotel. Chapter 275, The Bloodmoon Hotel. This is the only hotel in this city. A plaque like this hangs on the lintel of the door. The hotel must be unusual. Jian Wushuang thought while walking into the hotel. An attendant immediately came to greet him. "Patron, are you here for accommodation or a meal?" the attendant asked with a smile. "How many purple crystal spiritual liquid does it cost for one night?" Jian Wushuang said casually. 10 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid for one night," the attendant answered smilingly. Really expensive. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but sigh. Experts of the Yin-Yang Void Realm used purple crystal spiritual liquid for exchange. Ordinary experts of the initial Yin Void Realm owned about 100 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid. If they stayed here for a night, it would cost 10% of all their possessions. It was expensive indeed. Expensive? The attendant shook his head with a smile. Even one of our stools is worth a drop of purple crystal spiritual liquid. If someone messes up here and breaks our tables and stools, he would pay 100 times of that. That is to say, he will pay 100 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid for a stool. Tables deserve more. Pay 1,000 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid for a broken table, not to mention wine pots or wine bowls, so it doesn't cost you much for a night. If someone starts a fierce fight in our hotel, he must pay quite more than that. On hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. One needed to pay 100 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid if one broke a stool. Who would dare to fight in this hotel? There's total chaos in the Tang dynasty. Is there anyone that will pay? Jian Wushuang asked casually. You must have just arrived at the Tang dynasty, so you don't know our Tang dynasty. The attendant smiled. Yes, our Tang dynasty is famous for slaughter and doesn't have any bottom line. Actually, it depends on a rule, the law of the jungle. Our Bloodmoon hotel is strong, so those that have a fierce fight in our hotel will have to pay for it. Of course, our hotel is also afraid of some top experts. They can refuse to pay, especially those experts on the Bloodmoon list. What is the Bloodmoon list? Jian Wushuang asked with curiosity. The Bloodmoon list is a strength-ranking list based on the information collected by our Bloodmoon hotel. 1,000 experts from 21 large prefectures in the whole Tang dynasty are ranked on this list. The weakest is at the peak of the Yang Void Realm, while the strongest is an expert of the Saint Realm. They're the real top experts in the Tang dynasty, the attendant answered. 1,000 experts? Jian Wushuang was shocked. I knew the Bloodmoon list was similar to the Earthly Dragon list and Heavenly Dragon list of the Tianzong dynasty, but the Bloodmoon list was not based on realm, but strength and cultivation. Moreover, there were 1,000 experts on the list. In comparison, the number of people on the Earthly Dragon list and Heavenly Dragon list was just over 100. Patron, if you're interested in the Bloodmoon list, you can spend some purple crystal spiritual liquid on it. It costs 1,000 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid, the attendant said with a smile. Okay, give me a copy of it. Jian Wushuang nodded. He would slaughter in the Tang dynasty, so he needed a good understanding of the 1,000 top experts of the Tang dynasty. For an expert of exceptional Yin Void Realm, 1,000 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid would be all their possessions, but it meant nothing for Jian Wushuang, since several experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm had died in his hands. The attendant gave Jian Wushuang a thick copy of the list. Jian Wushuang started to read it carefully. It only recorded the 1,000 top experts' brief introduction, such as names, cultivation of spiritual power and impressive battle results, but Jian Wushuang spent 2 hours reading it thoroughly. Jian Wushuang could not help but acclaim. There are too many experts. The Tang dynasty lives up to its name as the top empire of the Nanyang continent. Among the 1,000 experts, there were 26 experts of the Saint Realm. The experts at the half-saint level accounted for 118 of the total number. Others had reached the peak of the Yang Void Realm, and quite a few experts had comprehended the origin. Experts of the Saint Realm and the half-saint level definitely belong to the top in the whole Nanyang continent, but in the Tang dynasty, there are a large number of such top experts. Jian Wushuang was shocked indeed. There were only a few experts of the Saint Realm and the half-saint realm in the top sects, such as the Wilderness Sword Sect and the Daluo Heaven Sect. Yet the Tang dynasty had 26 experts of the Saint Realm. What did this mean? It was no wonder that Wang Yuan had said the Tang dynasty was much more powerful than the 8 top sects, and even Alchemy School and Holy Emperor Palace held it in awe. In fact, most of the half-saint experts or experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm and Tang dynasty came from the old sects in the Nanyang continent. The Tang dynasty was considered as a place for training. Those who wanted to break through to the Saint Realm came here, so the Tang dynasty had a considerable number of experts. It's awesome. The Bloodmoon list is really awesome. Jian Wushuang acclaimed. Since this list is made by the Bloodmoon Hotel and holds absolute authority, the Bloodmoon Hotel must be the top force in the Tang dynasty. The Earthly Dragon list and Heavenly Dragon list was set by Golden Dragon Palace, the first overlord in the Tianzong dynasty. After all, people were only convinced of the lists made by the real powerful forces. The Bloodmoon Hotel could compile it, which proved its strength. That was why the Bloodmoon Hotel dared to hang such a plaque. Besides the experts of the Saint Realm and the Half-Saint experts, most of the 1,000 experts are at the peak of the Yang Void Realm and might be stronger than Mo Lingtian and Chen Feng that I had a fight with. I wonder what ranking I will have on the Bloodmoon list? Jian Wushuang thought with expectation. At this moment the footsteps came over. Then a purple-clothed woman surrounded by a group of figures stepped inside. After walking into the hotel, the purple-clothed woman looked around and immediately fixed her eyes on Jian Wushuang. Chapter 276, You Will Die. Chapter 276, You Will Die. I'm Dong Yu from the Bloodseeker gang, the purple-clothed woman said while staring at Jian Wushuang. Oh. Jian Wushuang looked toward her. Dong Yu had reached the Yang Void Realm and was accompanied by several experts of the Yin Void Realm. I heard that you killed Qing Ling and Qing Hai with one stroke. I know you're powerful, so I came to invite you to join our Bloodseeker gang, Dong Yu said directly. Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his brow and immediately asked, Who is the leader of your Bloodseeker gang? Our leader is Bloodseeker Shao Gang. Everyone around Devil Heart City knows him, Dong Yu replied with a hint of pride. After hearing this name, Jian Wushuang shook his head. He had an excellent memory, so he had already memorized the 1,000 top experts' names after reading through the list. Obviously there was no one called Shao Gang. Jian Wushuang could not take Shao Gang seriously, because the man had not climbed into the list. Sorry, I'm not interested. Jian Wushuang refused straightforwardly. Dong Yu looked disappointed and said again, You must know that Qing Ling and Qing Hai belong to the Hungry Wolf Gang. Based on their history they will come to pick a fight with you. I've seen the experts of the Hungry Wolf Gang outside when I came here. If you go with me you might have a chance to survive. Or, you will die as soon as you step outside. Really? Jian Wushuang smiled. I desperately want to know how I will die. Since you've made up your mind, I don't need to persuade you. See you. Dong Yu immediately left with her people. You should have accepted her invitation, the attendant said. She is right. The Hungry Wolf Gang is quite powerful in Devil Heart City. It is led by 6 leaders and all of them are experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm, so they're extremely aggressive. If you kill their people they will definitely kill you, so you'd better join the Bloodseeker Gang which can fight against the Hungry Wolf Gang. All of the 6 chiefs are at the peak of the Yang Void Realm? I wonder how many experts they have on the list? Jian Wushuang asked casually. None. The attendant shook his head. On hearing that, Jian Wushuang gave a faint smile without saying a word. He took out a pot of wine from his interspatial ring and drank alone. After an hour, he was about to leave the Bloodmoon Hotel. Good luck, the attendant said. Jian Wushuang smiled. The moment he walked out of the hotel, he immediately perceived that he was targeted by many people. Waiting to kill me? Jian Wushuang thought with a faint smile on his face. The Bloodmoon Hotel enjoyed unusual status in the whole Tang dynasty. When he had stayed in the hotel, experts of the Hungry Wolf Gang did not dare to start a fight. If they broke a stool they would pay 100 drops of purple crystal spiritual liquid, so they were afraid that a fierce fight would cost too much. Once Jian Wushuang left the hotel, the experts of the Hungry Wolf Gang would not have such concerns. Missed the chance to live. Now, let's see how he courts death. Under the eaves of a shabby house, Dong Yu and some experts of the Bloodseeker Gang stood there and fixed their eyes on Jian Wushuang. Crack. As the crack of the wine bowl explosion came out, dozens of figures appeared around Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang was targeted by their killing intent. Dozens of strokes slashed toward Jian Wushuang. When he raised his head, he found himself being blocked by those figures and had no opportunity to escape. In fact, he did not need to escape. The triple kill sword on Jian Wushuang's back was unsheathed, with a blast of roaring sword essence. Then a streak of sword light shone so brightly that the attackers could not help but close their eyes. The streak of sword light easily passed by the attackers. Those attackers fell one by one and were instantly killed. Cho, cho, cho. The 3 blasts of sound pierced the air as if they converged into one. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and suddenly stepped back. 3 strokes just passed by him, crashed into the ground and immediately exploded. Jian Wushuang found that these were 3 hidden arrows. With black liquid on the arrow tips, these arrows were highly toxic. Hee hee, how clever. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and disappeared instantly. The next moment, boom. Like a bomb, a figure violently hit the ground in the center of the street. It was a short and thin man who looked gloomy. The man held a bow. Obviously, the 3 toxic arrows were shot by him. Are these all you can do? Anything else? It was Jian Wushuang's voice. Boom. Behind his back, the void suddenly split and a giant axe of raging fire slashed toward Jian Wushuang. An expert at the peak of the Yang Void realm still needs to attack sneakily? Jian Wushuang had a faint smile and turned around to block it. Pum. A loud boom made the strong man who held the giant axe retreat, while Jian Wushuang was still standing there. What? The strong man was shocked when he saw Jian Wushuang easily block his stroke. He's the 6th leader of the Hungry Wolf Gang? Dong Yu and other experts of the Bloodseeker Gang were startled. The peak of the Yang Void realm? You must be a chief of the Hungry Wolf Gang? Jian Wushuang looked toward the strong men with cold eyes. Your Hungry Wolf Gang is really great. But sorry you pissed off the wrong man. As soon as he finished his words, Jian Wushuang had already disappeared. Where? The strong man kept vigilant for a sudden attack. The moment a cold streak of sword shadow suddenly appeared in front of him, the strong man immediately waved his giant axe to block it with his full strength. However, the streak of sword shadow changed into 3 strokes. When he managed to block only one of them, the other 2 strokes pierced his chest and belly. You dare to kill me? The strong man widened his eyes and stared at Jian Wushuang. My brother will take revenge for me. Your brother? I'll give him a chance. Jian Wushuang wore a cold smile which was as cruel as a blade. Chapter 277, The Killing Begins. Chapter 277, The Killing Begins. Jian Wushuang slowly walked down the street, leaving piles of corpses behind him. The warriors who had been watching the fighting along street were horrified, including members of the Bloodseeker Gang. They thought that as soon as Jian Wushuang left Bloodmoon Hotel, he would die. But now, the 6th leader of the Hungry Wolf Gang, an expert in the peak of the Yang Void realm, was killed. The Hungry Wolf Gang? Jian Wushuang slowly moved on while repeating the name in his heart. There are 6 experts in the peak of the Yang Void realm in this gang, but none of them is on the Bloodmoon list. They are not a threat to me. Now that they provoked me, I don't mind wiping them out here and now. Since I just arrived in the Tang dynasty, I'll take the Hungry Wolf Gang as my first target. The night witnessed a horrible scene in a large courtyard in the center of Devil Heart City, which was also the Hungry Wolf Gang's lair. Several corpses lay on the ground in the courtyard, and among them was the tall man who had been killed by Jian Wushuang. The young man is in his early 20s and only in the initial Yang Void realm, but he has killed so many experts of our gang and even killed 6th brother, a stout man with tan skin and brown hair said, staring down at the corpses. His eyes were grim and cold. He is so young yet so powerful. He must be a talented disciple of those old sects, a real genius. Nevertheless, no matter what background he has, it won't help him in the Tang dynasty. How dare he kill 6th bro? Find him right now. Get him and kill him even if you turn the city upside down, shouted the brown-haired man. Yes, sir, the members of the gang responded immediately. Suddenly, no need to find me. An emotionless voice echoed in the yard, and with the sound appeared a figure in black. I'm the one you're looking for. Jian Wushuang gazed at the experts of the Hungry Wolf Gang with his cold voice echoing across the whole yard. From today on, there will be no Hungry Wolf Gang. How arrogant. Kill him. The brown-haired man roared. The other experts of the Hungry Wolf Gang immediately leaped toward Jian Wushuang like real wolves. Jian Wushuang squinted at those experts, the triple kill sword trembling feverishly in his hand. The killing begins. While Jian Wushuang was fighting with the experts of the Hungry Wolf Gang, 2 figures passed by the top of the void above them. They looked very strong and happened to be passing by Devil Heart City. Just as soon as they arrived, they were immediately attracted by the fighting. They looked down, observing the fighting below. But in their eyes, it was more like a slaughter than a fight. They saw a young man in black, who was bursting with an overwhelming killing intent under the siege of many warriors. With the flashes of the sword sweeping out, the man killed one Hungry Wolf Gang expert every time the sword flashed. The 2 figures slowed down involuntarily. One of them was a demonic youth in a purple robe. When he gazed at the slaughtering below, a bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face. But the other one looked indifferent. How interesting. This young man is just in the initial Yang Void realm, but he killed so many experts under siege. Not only that, there are 5 experts in the peak of Yang Void realm among his opponents. The purple-robed youth said with excitement. Even if it's us that were being attacked by so many experts, we couldn't be as calm as him. He is very powerful, said the emotionless man in a low voice. You're right. The youth nodded with a strong fighting desire in his eyes. I'd love to fight with him. The people in the Tang dynasty were so crazy about killing, and many of them were lunatics keen for battle. This purple-robed youth was one of them. The slaughter in the courtyard was drawing to an end. Jian Wushuang's killing intent filled the air. His black clothes turned red with blood, and around him lay dense corpses. The Hungry Wolf gang possessed many experts, but it was exterminated by Jian Wushuang in a short while. Even the chiefs of the gang and the several experts at the peak of the Yang Void realm were also killed by him. Jian Wushuang showed no mercy to these people. He once experienced the test of the illusory realm of slaughter in his ancestors' land. That slaughter was much more frenzied than this one, but he still persevered in his way of killing. As for these people, none of them was innocent, as many lives had been lost at their hands during their adventure and killing. Thus, Jian Wushuang felt no guilt about killing them. You two have been watching for so long. It's time to come out. Jian Wushuang suddenly raised his head up and said. The 2 men above the void dived down and showed up in front of Jian Wushuang. They had both reached the peak of the Yang Void realm, and the killing intent of the purple-robed demonic youth was particularly strong. It's very powerful of you to destroy a gang all by yourself, especially one under the charge of several experts at the peak of the Yang Void realm, said the purple-robed youth with a smile. Just SOSO. What do you want from me? Jian Wushuang asked impassively. Haha, it's hard to come across an expert like you who's strong enough to be listed in the Bloodmoon list. I can't let you go before we have a fight, said the purple-robed youth with a grin. Oh. Squinting his eyes, Jian Wushuang was not surprised. There were so many crazy people in the Tang dynasty that it was normal for a warlike man to challenge an expert he met. After finishing his speech, the purple-robed youth rushed toward Jian Wushuang like a purple thunderbolt. Just in a moment, the thunderbolt crossed over 30 meters and came up close to Jian Wushuang, cracking the void in front of him and revealing a stone cudgel surrounded with thunderbolt power. Boom, boom. The power kept surging and rushing. So fast. Jian Wushuang was shocked, but he retreated quickly the moment the stone cudgel chopped toward him. The cudgel eventually smashed the void. Seeing this, the purple-robed youth smiled grimly, and in an instant, a giant thunder dragon came out of the cudgel and dashed toward Jian Wushuang roaring. Oh! Jian Wushuang's heart pounded. He was quite amazed at the purple-robed youth's strength. Though he hasn't comprehended the origin, he is very excellent in comprehending the thunderbolt essence. What's more, his cultivation method and skills not only are quite superb, but also performed with thunderbolt power. Thus, he is absolutely as strong as the experts who had comprehended the origin and were in the peak of the Yang Void realm. Jian Wushuang looked grim. He drew back hastily, but the dragon kept chasing him. Chapter 278, An Invitation. Chapter 278, An Invitation. With a leap, Jian Wushuang landed on the roof, and the thunder dragon quickly followed him. Crack! The dragon swept over the roof, and under its powerful attack, the roof was smashed into pieces. After rapidly flying around the rooftop, Jian Wushuang returned to the purple-robed youth. With a terrifying killing intent, Jian Wushuang slashed at the youth with his sword, his great power behind it. The purple-robed youth remained calm and brandished the stone cudgel once more. With a rumbling boom, the thunderbolt's power exploded fiercely, and yet the cudgel was knocked away by Jian Wushuang's sword. As soon as Jian Wushuang beat back the youth, he found that the emotionless man was upon him before he could attack the youth further. All at once, a shaft of black light appeared which quickly transformed into a thread, both chilling and terrifying. Seeing the black light, Jian Wushuang could not help but frown. He instantly stamped the ground with his feet. Where he stamped, the ground would crackle. He suddenly retreated back and at the same time raised the triple kill sword. With this move, a towering giant appeared behind him out of thin air, wielding a sword of its own, which proceeded to attack the two. The strike was so powerful that the youth and the emotionless man were both shocked and were forced to defend themselves at the same time. Bang! The powerful roar echoed between heaven and earth. The whole of Devilheart City trembled at that very moment. Whoosh! 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 3 flowing lights fell back all at once and stood firm in the void. Their positions set in 3 different directions. Sword in one hand, Jian Wushuang stared the other 2 down impassively. His eyes, however, glittered with excitement. The purple-robed youth was burning with a pure desire for battle. But after a moment he was able to control that desire, suppressing it. That's enough. Stop the fighting, the emotionless man said, and then looked at Jian Wushuang. Gentlemen, we meant no harm. My brother was simply born too warlike for his own good, unable to suppress his desire for battle. But it certainly doesn't go as far as to the death. The purple-robed youth gave Jian Wushuang a grin. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes, then nodded himself. He had noticed that as well. These 2 men fought against him with plenty of restraint. It had become obvious through their blows that neither had intended to fight seriously. Since that's the case, both of you are free to leave, Jian Wushuang said in a cold voice. However, the 2 didn't move. You are a truly mighty expert. In a one-on-one fight, my brother and I alone are no match for you, said the emotionless man. With such strength, your name must be mentioned quite often in the Tang dynasty. Yet I'm confused about which one on the Bloodmoon list should be you. Bloodmoon list. Jian Wushuang shook his head. I arrived in the Tang dynasty today, so I am not on the list. Oh. Their eyes lit up. Then your name? Asked the emotionless man. Swordsman, replied Jian Wushuang. Swordsman? The emotionless man nodded and said, I am Bei Mu and my brother is called Leng Yang. Both of us come from the Heartless Sect. Bei Mu and Leng Yang? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had seen those names on the Bloodmoon list before. Leng Yang had been ranked 864th on the list. Bei Mu had been ranked 713th on the list. The 2 had both been outstanding experts with rather high rankings on the list. No wonder they are so strong. They turned out to be the experts on the Bloodmoon list. Jian Wushuang thought with approving admiration. There were so many experts within this dynasty that an ordinary expert in the peak of the Yang Void realm was not worth mentioning. After all, he had killed 6 of them just in one day. But it was another story for the experts in the same realm on the Bloodmoon list. They were much stronger than the former. Just like the warriors of the Gold Core realm on the Earthly Dragon list of the Tianzong dynasty, the warriors on the Bloodmoon list could best all the others who had achieved the same tier. The same was true of the experts at the peak of the Yang Void realm on the Bloodmoon list. Swordsman, you seem to be a bit stronger than even us. To stay in such a small city is nothing short of wasting your many talents, said Bei Mu, looking at Jian Wushuang. As I see it, you might as well follow us to the Heartless Sect, he continued, since our sect is one of the 4 great powers in the Skywave Prefecture. Besides, there's a raging battle with another force ongoing. You can display your talent to its fullest if you were to go there. The Heartless Sect. Upon hearing the name, Jian Wushuang immediately recalled a person, the master of Heartless Sect, a half-saint expert who was ranked 118th on the Bloodmoon list. So, what do you think? Both Bei Mu and Leng Yang both appeared confident, likely expecting a positive reply. Since their sect had recently been fighting a fierce battle with another great force, they certainly had an urgent need for more experts. Since that was the case, any experts that qualified to be on the Bloodmoon list, such as Jian Wushuang, would undoubtedly be well received. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment before finally nodding. Very well, I shall follow you. Hearing this, Bei Mu and Leng Yang glanced at one another with satisfied grins before turning back to Jian Wushuang with happy smiles on their faces. How soon can you depart? Asked Bei Mu. Please wait for a moment, I'll be ready to leave soon, Jian Wushuang answered. Okay. Bei Mu and Leng Yang waited where they were while Jian Wushuang left for the void nearby. In a modest room in the Devilheart City, a black-robed youth leaned on a corner drinking. Suddenly, with a long sword upon his back, Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the youth. The black-robed youth raised his head, revealing a face as same as Jian Wushuang's. Through sheer force of will, Jian Wushuang and the youth soon merged into a single body. No one knew that the man who had slaughtered the Hungry Wolf gang and later fought both Bei Mu and Leng Yang to a standstill had just been a slaughtered doppelganger of Jian Wushuang. As for himself, he had been in that room since the very beginning. Jian Wushuang slowly swayed the wine pot. Beimu is right. Destroying the strongest gang in the Devil Heart City, the Hungry Wolf Gang, was so easy for me. I can't put my talent to use here at all. But the Heartless Sect, it's one of the 4 great powers in the Skywave Prefecture. There is an average of 50 experts on the Bloodmoon list for every one of the 21 prefectures in the Tang dynasty. In Skywave Prefecture alone, I could guess there were at most 50 experts that come from the 4 powers. Only there can see more experts. Considering the intricacy of the powers of the Tang dynasty, most experts and warriors would choose to join forces with them in particular. That was exactly what Jian Wushuang planned to do as well. As for the Bloodseeker Gang, a gang without even one expert on the Bloodmoon list and had also invited him to join during the day, they no longer suited his tastes. The Heartless Sect was far more qualified to present him an invitation, which was exactly why he accepted their invitation. Having made up his mind, Jian Wushuang came back to the Hungry Wolf Gang's nest and saw Bei Mu and Ling Yang still waiting there. "Hey, let's go." Jian Wushuang smiled. Upon seeing Jian Wushuang, Bei Mu and Ling Yang both felt that his aura seemed to have changed somewhat, but they didn't pay much attention. With Jian Wushuang now in tow, the 3 headed to the Heartless Sect. Chapter 279, The Heartless Sect. Chapter 279, The Heartless Sect. The Heartless Sect headquartered in the Heartless City within the Skywave Prefecture. Brother Swordsman, we will arrive in the Heartless City quite soon. When we meet with our master, I shall recommend you to him as a protector of our sect. Your strength is more than enough to qualify you to be a protector, said Ling Yang on the way to the Heartless City. Jian Wushuang softly smiled at him. He had heard a bit about the Heartless Sect from the 2 along the way. He quite aware that the most prominent figure in the sect was, of course, the master of Heartless Sect, a half-saint expert. Below him came the protectors. There were 8 protectors in total, each of them being the top expert on the Bloodmoon list. As a matter of fact, both Bei Mu and Ling Yang were protectors. Here we are, said Bei Mu. Jian Wushuang had also seen the huge city on the horizon. As the headquarters of the Heartless Sect, Heartless City was much larger than Devil Heart City. Not even mentioning how heavily guarded it was. Protector Bei Mu, Protector Ling Yang. The warriors of the Heartless Sect passing by all respectfully greeted Bei Mu and Ling Yang when the 2 led Jian Wushuang into the city. Soon they came into a manners meeting hall. Inside, the master of the Heartless Sect, a lean purple-haired old man, was discussing something important with several other protectors when Jian Wushuang followed Bei Mu and Ling Yang into the hall. Your Excellency, we are back, called Ling Yang. His disposition had always been more straightforward. Ling Yang, Bei Mu. Seeing their appearance, the master gave a pleasant smile and stopped the discussion temporarily. Your Excellency, please allow me to introduce you to my new brother, Swordsman. We met along the way, said Ling Yang. Both the master and the protectors looked toward Jian Wushuang with curiosity. So young? That was their first impression of Jian Wushuang. Your Excellency, he may be young, he is already very powerful. Bei Mu and I have decided to recommend him to Your Excellency as the 9th protector of our sect, Ling Yang said. Yeah, we did. Bei Mu gave a slight nod. Oh. Both the master of the Heartless Sect and the protectors were amazed at the recommendation. Only the experts on the Bloodmoon list or those comparable to them could hold the post of protector. They never heard the name Swordsman before, so the name obviously had never been on the Bloodmoon list. Young man, you appear to barely be in your early 20s. Could it be that you have reached the peak of the Yang Void Realm at such a ripe age? The master turned to Jian Wushuang and asked. The peak of the Yang Void Realm? No, Your Excellency. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang continued, I'm only now in the initial Yang Void Realm. Well? The master raised his eyebrows. The protectors beside the master began to sneer at Jian Wushuang directly. One grim-looking mustached protector in snow-white marten coat said, Is this some kind of joke, Ling Yang, Bei Mu? Recommending a young man, who has only reached the initial Yang Void Realm, as the protector of our sect? Will be mocked by every faction in the Skywave Prefecture if your recommendation ever leakages from here. Brother Swordsman's realm is indeed not high, but he still has a mighty power. Bei Mu and I couldn't defeat him in a short bout, not when we cooperated. With such strength, wouldn't he be able to be listed on the Bloodmoon list? Ling Yang shot a glance at the grim-looking man. From his expression, Others could easily sense his disgust and dissatisfaction. Humph. You tell me, did you use all of your might to fight against him when you cooperated with Beimu? The grim-looking man asked harshly. Did you display your Thousand Thunder Realm? Did Beimu display his triple black light? No, Lingyang replied, shaking his head. It was true that they left some leeway when they fought with Jian Wushuang, and so did Jian Wushuang. Beimu and he did not use their special skills, but he believed that Jian Wushuang also held back his real strength. Well, that's the point. How can you conclude that this young man is on a par with you as you didn't even perform your best skills when fighting with him? Asked the grim-looking man with a vicious sneer. But, Lingyang tried to say something more. That's enough. The master began to speak, which shut both Lingyang and the grim-looking man up. Lingyang Beimu, the master continued, since you too highly recommended this young man, I believe he must be talented. I won't have his talent wasted. Wu Jiao's Bloody Blade team just so happens to be short-handed, so I suggest that he join the Bloody Blade team first. Your Excellency. Lingyang frowned. In his eyes, Jian Wushuang was strong enough to be a protector. You've said enough. The master stopped Lingyang, and then he looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, What do you say, young man? I accept. Jian Wushuang nodded without hesitation. In fact, he didn't care about the post of protector at all. What really mattered to him was to steel himself by fighting experts. As long as he could get the chance to challenge experts, it wouldn't matter if he was a protector or not. Good. Wu Jiao, I shall leave this young man in your care. Nurture him well, said the master. No problem, Your Excellency. The grim-looking man stood up and walked over to Jian Wushuang. In a low voice he said, Boy, follow me. Brother swordsman, you can rest assured. With your strength you can achieve great things wherever you are, said Lingyang. Hearing this, a smile formed on Jian Wushuang's lips. He nodded at Lingyang and then departed with Wu Jiao. In the void above the Heartless city, Jian Wushuang walked slowly behind Wu Jiao. Boy, let's make this clear, Wu Jiao said coldly. I don't care what relationship you have with Lingyang and Beimu. Now that you are on my team, you must obey my orders without question, even if it is the one that tells you to die. If you show any hesitation in following my orders, I will kill you with my own hands on the spot. With an eyebrow cocked, Jian Wushuang smiled slightly but did not respond. It didn't take long for Wu Jiao to arrive at a huge courtyard with Jian Wushuang in tow. Tai Shan. Wu Jiao yelled with a voice that echoed throughout the courtyard. Almost immediately, a group of people came out from the courtyard led by a man taller than 2 meters. Standing there, the tall man could have been mistaken for a hill. Protector Wu Jiao. Tai Shan and the others saluted reverently. Given that you, the 9th team, lost one man recently, I have acquired you a replacement. The man beside me is called Swordsman, a newcomer in our sect. Remember to teach him the rules I set. Wu Jiao said and shot a glance at Jian Wushuang before leaving. Chapter 280 Bloody Blade Team. Chapter 280, Bloody Blade Team. After Wu Jiao left, the tall man said brightly, Swordsman, I'm Tai Shan. From now on we are allies fighting by one another's side. I'm Gu Chue. I'm Imoing. I'm Tao. The other members of Bloody Blade Team began to introduce themselves. Let's go. Tai Shan spoke. Then they returned to the courtyard and sat around the stone table. The 9th squad was comprised of 10 people and all of them were here. Swordsman, you've just joined Heartless Sect. You probably know little about our sect or our Bloody Blade team, right? Tai Shan asked. Right. Jian Wushuang shook his head and replied. Let me tell you something about the internal situation of the Tang dynasty. It's full of slaughter. For their own sake, a great number of powerful factions continue to fight one another for their own interests. It is certainly far crazier than the outside world. Fighting for benefits existed everywhere, but it certainly was crazier in the Tang dynasty than most other places. There were many varied forces in the Tang dynasty. Weaker groups would hand over a certain amount of purple crystal spiritual liquid to the stronger factions. It was called monthly supply, and as one might expect, the stronger forces received more monthly supply. Moreover, there was an abundance of natural resources in the Tang dynasty such as load and numerous natural treasures. These, of course, were possessed by the large forces and factions. In order to gain benefits, every organization had little alternative to fighting for control. Taishan added, our Heartless sect is one of the 4 factions in Skywave Prefecture. It's also one of the most powerful forces in the Tang dynasty. Our master is a mighty expert who has reached the half-saint level and ranks 118th on the Bloodmoon list. Furthermore, there are the 8 protectors who are also top experts on the Bloodmoon list. We also have experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Do we have many experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, of course. Taishan nodded heavily. Many experts are glad to join our sect, one of the 4 factions in Skywave Prefecture, so we have many experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Although I'm not quite clear about the number of them, I think we have at least 200 experts at such level. What? Jian Wushuang suppressed his shock. There were more than 200 experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. Even the old sects, the Wilderness Sword Sect and the Daluo Heaven Sect, would never have so many experts at the level. However, a large force in the Tang dynasty could own 200 experts. What could that mean? However, after some careful consideration, Jian Wushuang felt at ease. The Tang dynasty was known as the Slaughterous dynasty and was also one of the best places to practice for many people, so it was not strange for a large number of top experts to come to the Tang dynasty. It could even be said that in the entire Nanyang continent, at least 30% of experts at the half-saint level or at the peak of the Yang Void Realm gathered in the Tang dynasty, so the Tang dynasty had many experts at such levels. Though the experts could roam around the Tang dynasty, they did not belong to the Tang dynasty, so the amount of force the Tang dynasty could control was only a fragment of a much greater whole. But even with just a small part of the force, it was still far more than enough to make places like the Alchemy School and the Holy Emperor Palace experience a great sense of awe. 200 experts at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. I just made a conservative estimate. Taishan smiled. Our Bloody Blade team is the most elite force for the Heartless sect and comprised of 100 people. The minimum requirement of joining our team is battle strength at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. A hint of shock flashed past Jian Wushuang's eyes. Everyone in the Bloody Blade team had reached peak of the Yang Void Realm. The team consisted of 100 experts. If this were in the Nanyang continent, 3 valleys and 4 temples might not be able to build such a team. However, a single sect within the Tang dynasty could easily make such a force. The Bloody Blade team has 10 squads. Each squad has 10 experts. Now you're in the 9th squad and I'm the leader. They're your teammates, Taishan said with a smile. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and asked, Protector Wu Jiao just said he set some rules. What rules? Rules? Taishan sneered. Well, Wu Jiao controls our Bloody Blade team, so all of us must follow his orders. The rules he set up are quite simple, that is, don't question what he said and don't hesitate to obey his orders. Otherwise your life would and will become miserable. Oh. Jian Wushuang looked toward him. I've been in the Bloody Blade team for more than 1 year. I've seen a leader was killed by Wu Jiao because he hesitated for a while after receiving an order, Taishan added. I heard that Wu Jiao has ordered Bloody Blade team to kill enemies. A powerful protector was opposed to Wu Jiao, but ended up slain. After that, many people speculated it was Wu Jiao who led 2 squads and killed the protector in secret. But they haven't gotten any evidence, so this case has remained unsettled. Jian Wushuang was somewhat shocked. Wu Jiao really is quite overbearing. Those are the rules he set. Truth is, he has such power because he's strong. If you're stronger than him, you can do whatever you want, and even disobeying his orders is entirely possible, Taishan said. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. That was the truth. There were no rules for powerful experts in other places, let alone for somewhere such as the Tang dynasty. Well, swordsman, you're so young but you are still able to join our team. You must be strong, right? Taishan suddenly asked. The other 8 teammates looked toward him with great interest. Jian Wushuang could not help but laugh. He had already understood what they meant. After a while, Jian Wushuang started sparring with his teammates. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.